Is there anything in particular you want to talk about? Or?
Do this.
Otherwise, I'll just kind of lead the conversation.
No, I guess maybe just.
Okay,
what you guys talked about Colorado? Did you talk about Denver County?
A little bit, but a little bit, not a lot.
I guess maybe just a little bit about
Denver County.
Denver and Jefferson County.
Okay.
That's where we got quotes from.
Sure.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, we are going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What our country needs now more than ever is the spirit of aloha.
This election, seriously, is just too important for our party to have the same kinds of divisions that we saw back in 2016. We just cannot do that again.
You showed that we are united in our conviction that hope defeats fear, that courage overcomes cynicism, that we will always be a stronger party and a stronger nation when we unite around our shared values.
Let's get something straight. Wall Street did not build America. Investment bankers did not build America. Hard-working middle-class people built America. Unions built the middle class.
All over this country, workers are sick and tired of earning starvation wages. You can't make it on $9 an hour or $11 an hour or $12 an hour. We are going to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Hello and thank you for joining us again on this Met Media Super Tuesday update. I'm Brenden Mincheff, this time joined by the Editor-in-Chief of the Metropolitan, James Burky, and again by Brenden Gilliss. We do have 3 races to call and update on one of them that we brought you on the last update. Minnesota has officially gone to Joe Biden. With 61% of the vote right now being counted, Joe Biden is ahead by about 30,000 votes and 7% of the counted vote right now in the state. Another race that we want to go ahead and call is the state of Arkansas. With 53% of the votes in, Joe Biden is currently up by about 15,000 votes on Senator Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden currently has 35.69% of the vote that's being counted in Arkansas. And finally, and this one just was called, the state of Utah. And the state of Utah has gone to Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Bernie Sanders currently has 31% of the vote that's being reported, and 74% of all ballots have been counted in the state of Utah at this hour. So we're still waiting on a few races in the East that have yet to be called. Massachusetts is one of them, and the other one is Maine, and Maine is currently separated by about 500 votes, and Joe Biden is back on top of Bernie Sanders in Maine. So, James, you have been to a couple of polling places today, right?
Yeah.
And you've sent a couple of reporters. So what are you kind of hearing back here in Colorado?
So back here in Colorado, it really seems like whether it be Trump, whether it be the Democratic candidates themselves, something has galvanized Colorado reporters. An old colleague of mine over at the Post, Andrew Kinney, who's now with the CPR, tweeted a stat earlier today that 600,000 people voted in the Democratic primaries alone. To put that into context, the number of people who statewide participated in the 2016 Colorado Democratic Caucus, just over 100,000.
Oh, wow.
So this almost sextupled the entire voting base from back in 2016. And then you even look at, and the reasoning why I think Bernie Sanders played a large role in that, you look at two of the biggest counties in Colorado, Jefferson County and Denver County.
Mm-hmm.
In Denver County, Bernie Sanders leads by about 17% of the vote. That's about to be expected, and Colorado seemed to be a shoo-in for Bernie Sanders. And then you look at Jefferson County, a county that has not only mirrored but often decided where Colorado goes in the elections. He's right now at 34% of the vote. That's 11% higher than Michael Bloomberg. Something we did notice, something that has really galvanized a lot of the voters. Immigration, Colorado and Auraria have a high Hispanic population, and mostly just young people wanting to get their voices heard.
Okay. Another thing that we've actually not seen tonight is Pete Buttigieg pick up any delegates at all in any of the states that have been called so far. And I think what's interesting with that is it says two things. It says, one, not a lot of people voted early, evidently. Otherwise, we would be seeing delegates for Pete Buttigieg. But I think additionally, it says that Mayor Pete made the right call after all with dropping out over the weekend, because it just doesn't seem like he had that moderate support. It didn't seem like he was going to get a lot of it. If he was going to have a lot of it, I think we would have seen by now at least one or two delegates go to his campaign, and we've seen none. Even Tulsi Gabbard picked up a delegate tonight. So what do you think that says about like the consolidation of candidates kind of behind Joe Biden, of moderate candidates? Because Klobuchar dropped out, Buttigieg dropped out, and so now it's really just Joe Biden and Michael Bloomberg in the moderates.
Right, yeah, I found that very, very surprising too myself. Because back about a month ago, we saw Pete Buttigieg, in my opinion, he was picking up a lot of steam. And then it just seemed like he had like financial troubles, and then of course as more and more primaries came through, it just seemed like he was falling out of favor. And there were a lot of calls for these sort of like second-tier candidates to drop out too by a lot of people that I was just reading through online. Everyone just kind of wanted people like Buttigieg and Klobuchar, who did end up dropping out. A lot of calls to endorse all these different candidates. Of course, they ended up going to Joe Biden, and I think that just shows that they know that they personally can't do it, so they just want to make sure that their ideas are still found, and they're going to do that by going with Joe Biden rather than a more progressive and more hardcore candidate like Bernie Sanders.
So also developing since our last update is the AP reports that Mayor Michael Bloomberg is going to reevaluate his chances of winning the nomination tomorrow. After all the money that Bloomberg has put into the race at this point, his goal was Super Tuesday. He said, I'm going to win on Super Tuesday, we're going to win on Super Tuesday, and it's not going to matter that we didn't participate in Iowa, New Hampshire, and in Nevada, and South Carolina. One, did that plan backfire? And two, do you think he drops out this week?
I think he probably would drop out this week. I can't say for certain, but if his goal is Super Tuesday and he's shown to be just objectively just a poor standing based on what we've seen tonight, I just don't know if even without the amount of money that he's poured into this campaign, if he can really give it a push that would give it any sort of viability in the long term.
Yeah, kind of building off that, I mean, let's look at some of the splits, not just how he's doing overall, but how he's doing in certain demographics. I have a fact here, a little chart here from Jeffrey Skelly from 538 that breaks down for the early voting states from tonight: Alabama, North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. These are in the black votes. You compare the two, okay, so we're just going to agree, the two moderates, Biden and Bloomberg. Biden won 72% of the black vote in Alabama. Bloomberg won 9%. In North Carolina, Biden won 63%, Bloomberg won 10%. Virginia, 71 to Biden, 7 to Bloomberg, and then in Tennessee, 62, it looks like 62 to Biden and 12 to Bloomberg. One of the deciding factors that when you're going up against Biden is how are you going to chip into that, that minority voting base and the young people voting base. And Bloomberg can't. And I think that's one of the telling factors to me, in my opinion, is that if he can't even chip away at those numbers, if he was making progress, then you could make a good argument for him to stay in and maybe he can go down the stretch. But the fact that he's, not only is he not chipping into that, he's getting destroyed in those voting bases.
So, but we've seen in Nevada and we've seen in Colorado, and I'm presuming that we're going to see in California too when the polls close, is that Sanders has been the candidate that's done well with the Hispanic population. Joe Biden has not, but Joe Biden's been the candidate that's done better with the African American population. If we get to a general election where it is, Vice President Biden versus President Trump, do you think that all hurts Joe Biden's chances, or do you think Democratic voters will kind of come around and just say, you know what, we don't want Trump, we're going to vote Joe Biden?
For me right now, it's really tough to tell because tonight has gone a lot of ways. I mean, a week ago, Biden was all but out.
Right.
And, I expected the support of Klobuchar and Buttigieg to boost him. I didn't expect it to boost him as much as it has.
Right.
So I think this is one of those, I relate this election cycle right now to the NFL playoffs. For example, when it's a really volatile season, you just can't predict who's going to make it to the Super Bowl. You have to take it week by week, and I think that's what we're seeing now. That something that Trump turned the American election cycle on its head in 2016 is that it can really, really change more so than it has in the past in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. It's very interesting to see, how each state has voted a certain ways. I definitely think that what you have mentioned about the minority vote could definitely come into play later. I honestly, I didn't know that Joe Biden was doing so well with black voters. That chart was really enlightening to me, and I think that really just kind of hammers home the point for me that Bloomberg really just did not live up to the expectations that I think he set for himself with the amount of money that he had poured into ad spending on leading up to tonight.
Well, I think that's a good conversation. Before we go, we'll give a quick update on the state of Texas. Bernie Sanders is up only by 3% and about 40,000 votes at this point. So as expected, that gap is narrowing now that we're getting a lot more of these rural counties coming in. California closes at 9 o'clock our time, so we'll be back at about 9 o'clock with our final update of the evening. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. We'll see you in just a few minutes. And there you go. That's an update.
Cool. Thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah, that was fun.